Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and in today's this week with Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, we have a lot to cover. There are important developments in New York, or rather in America, as well as in India. And as I welcome Dr. Parikh to this show of his own, how are you feeling, Doctor?
Well, I'm feeling great, but I have a lot of concern about what's happening in India. In the two front, one is the pandemic front, economic front, and as well as Sino-India relation.
Absolutely. So let us begin with the Sino-India conflict and 20 soldiers martyred, and situation is not very clear. How do you look at these developments?
Well, I mean, I'm sure government is on the top of it, under control of it, and this conflict. I mean, it is a small conflict, yet right now, but I think it's a serious conflict because there is no reason why there should be a conflict, right? So I'm sure government uh, is well aware of it, and government is letting us know whatever we are supposed to know as a people of Republic of India.
That is true. And let me read the tweet of Home Minister Rajnath Singh ji. He said the loss of soldiers in Galwan is deeply disturbing and painful. Our soldiers displayed exemplary courage and valor in the line of duty and sacrificed their lives in the highest tradition of the Indian Army. And Dr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also in his address said that their sacrifice will not go in vain. But when you translate these words into actual action, which potentially is possible on the part of India, while Chinese have entered in the Indian territory, how do you see possible developments in near future?
Well, I think this kind of conflict, the best way to resolve is a diplomatic way. And I'm sure our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense and PMOs, they all are in a very tireless and round-the-clock negotiation with the counterpart of China. And somehow they should resolve this thing, and hopefully this should not end up going into the United Nations or third-party involvement beyond the bilateral conflict.
Yeah, like China and India both are kind of more powerful than what they were earlier. But parallel to this conflict, the COVID-19 and this virus, there is a resurgence in China as well as in India. How do you see the timing of this conflict? Is there something which hypothetically is it's not visible and might be underneath the kind of developments that we see on the border?
Well, I mean, timing is unfortunate, and timing usually this kind of the. I mean, here obviously China is aggressor, and not they do not have good intention. And a person, I mean, country who does not have good intention, they always take advantage of kind of sensitive timing for the opposite party. So that's why I mean, because of this COVID pandemic, India has that pandemic is going very kind of very worrisome. At that time, China is taking undue advantage of India and doing all this mischief.
So now talking about the role of active and alert opposition. On the one hand, we heard from Congress leader Sonia Gandhi expressing her full support to the government in this situation. And at the same time, there are questions being raised, particularly Rahul Gandhi said today, when there is so much anger in the country over Chinese intrusion into Indian border, the Prime Minister should come out and tell the truth on how the Chinese occupied the Indian territory, why brave soldiers were martyred, and what is current situation along the LAC. Do you think pressurizing or seeking details from government is natural in a democracy, or do you see Congress' role is not at par with what you would expect them to be taking?
Well, I mean, this morning, I think, or evening time, India time, Prime Minister did address the nation regarding this Sino-India conflict, and I'm sure he gave a complete overview of what's going on, where we stand, and where China stands, and where the world stands, or world opinion stands on this. And I think he tried to give good overview. But in democracy also, I think opposition has right, and opposition should keep reminding party in the power to give the correct, or not correct, but what I say is overview of the situation time to time, because people of India has right to know, unless there is some sensitive issues or part, a technique or part where government cannot share with the because of national security, that is fine. But overall view should be given to the public.
So on the whole, people always have been critical of Prime Minister Narendra Modi for not taking questions from the press. And that continues in this context. But let's move towards the parallel track of the problem or situation related to COVID-19. And unfortunately, what we see now is there are many more COVID-19, this virus affected people in India, and that number is growing. And it is kind of apparent that India is not in a position to handle the number of deaths. And so overall on this front, how do you see, and is there any potential role that sitting here some of the Indian American doctors can play?
Well, I mean, I think if you recall, I predicted this 2-3 weeks ago that when everybody was thought that in India, because of the very strict lockdown, everything is under well control, but that was false perception, because you can see now that whole situation is exploded, and that's a kind of a normal expected, in a sense that when people come out and the people, I mean, government do more testing, is bound to create this kind of explosion and more cases. And during lockdown, I'm sure government has done its best to prepare a hospital, number of beds, and number of doctors, number of healthcare workers, and so forth. But it looks like because of the sheer population of the India, the thick, crowded living condition, and also certain kind of lack of education, lack of information or education, this number of cases are going out of hand. And not only that, but I think it looks like is that government does not have enough number of beds or facility, or government should do a little more than what they are doing, and make sure that all the private hospitals take part into this COVID crisis. Yep. And from here, what we can do as a doctor or as a healthcare person, I think the doctors from here or nurses, those who are of Indian origin, should volunteer themselves, go back to India and give some service for next 2-3 weeks, and that will be very helpful to India.
Indeed, talking about what could be helpful in terms of economic revival of India, do you see the roadmap is laid out and shared by Indian government? And any advice, if you may have at this point, for Indian Finance Minister or Indian Prime Minister?
Well, I mean, roadmap is relatively is very good, and I think it's on the track. But the only thing is, as a lot of other economists voice their opinion, saying that to any economy to be revived, there is of course there should be manufacturing, production. So government has given a lot of money to corporations there, but at the same time government should give quite a bit money, quite a bit support or subsidy to the people of India, because by supplying the goods is not good enough. But you need a supplier and a consumer to utilize those goods, and then economy can be revived successfully.
Absolutely. And continuing with the part reference of economy with America and President Trump working towards new equation with World Trade Organization. In fact, he has been very critical and has blamed that America is not treated fairly by this organization, and he has called for a reset button. How do you look at this development and the ideas or actions on the part of President Trump?
I think I agree with the President Trump on this issue, because there need to be reset the button for world trade, because I think USA has capability, facility, and manpower to do what USA used to do in 20 years ago or 25, 30 years ago, before World Trade Act, that we can manufacture our supply from scratch to everything and anything. So you don't have to be dependent on the foreign country for supply. And if you want to get the cheaper manpower in foreign countries, then foreign country has to also abide by, or American corporation who manufactures in the foreign country should pay some extra tariff on that, because that's the only way to revive the economy.
Absolutely, and more details next time. But before we wind up today's session, I would like us to focus back on the current development related to COVID-19. And fortunately, as New Yorkers are working towards reopening, things are much better in tri-state area than many other states. So what additional or sustained precaution you would like to recommend?
Well, I mean, as we repeat every week, that even though in New York, New Jersey area, luckily the COVID is under well control, the incidence percentage of the new infection is much, much less. Number of admissions are less. Number of deaths are much less. But in order to continue this thing, we must not forget that the virus is still around, is not gone away. So we must wear the mask to protect yourself and protect others in the public. Wash your hand all frequently. And the third thing is keep the social distance. If you do this, even if you continue to come out and work on workplace, then I think probably we can win this virus crisis. And hopefully the vaccine should be here by end of the year, and some new medical treatment will be here before that. And if it comes, then I think people will feel more confident and more mentally will accept the coming out and be part of the normal life.
I appreciate that, and as we request you to share your final thoughts on today's show, I also want you to tell us, based on your personal interaction with once you are back in your clinic or you are interacting with other physicians. So, how is the spirit in terms of revival of the new normal?
Well, I mean, luckily I'm in the field where it's a medical field, and luckily always medical field bounce back right away. So as soon as we open up ourselves for 100%, our census, means number of patients who comes to visit us, it went back to pre-COVID time in 1 week time, or 1 or 2 weeks, in 1 or 2 weeks time. So because that's advantage we have, because all the patients were really looking for some medical help. They were not coming out because of the lockdown. And now, but of course, we have to maintain our offices. We have to disinfect our waiting room, disinfect our exam room after each patient. And then we make sure that our appointment schedule is such that we don't let waiting room or office get crowded. And all the doctors and nurses, everyone wears all the protective mask and gears. And I think everything, as far as medicine is concerned, I think most of the doctors are back to normal.
And your final thoughts?
Well, as I say that all the time, every week, that again, viruses is down, rate of infection is down, hospital admission is down, number of deaths are down, but don't think that viruses are gone away or disappeared. So please remember, when you are out, when you are at work, when you are at in the community, make sure that you don't join the crowded situation. Keep the mask on when you're in public. Keep the personal hygiene aggressively, and keep the distance. And I think that's a great formula, and nothing to worry about otherwise. So good luck, and God bless America, God bless India, and we'll see you next week. Please join us. Thank you.